Saranu Sat Sri Akal, welcome to another health show of mine at 9:40 p.m. every Wednesday. Stay tuned, but taking you into an emotional journey of some people want it, some people don't want it, some people desire for it, some people yearn for it. This is a journey ਜਿੱਥੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਦੁੱਖ ਵੇਲੇ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਸੁੱਖ ਵੇਲੇ ਸ਼ੁਕਰਾਨਾ, ਪਰ ਹਰ ਵੇਲੇ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਦਾ ਮੰਤਰ ਜਾਪੋ ਐਂਡ ਉਹ ਜਾਪਣ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਝੋਲੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਖੁਸ਼ੀਆਂ ਬਖਸ਼ਦਾ ਹੈ. You get your happiness if you believe in yourself, believe in God. But sometimes an intervention of medicine has to come in between, where we have to do something to help a couple for fertility or infertility. Today, I am welcoming you to my journey in this health show of infertility and welcoming Felix. Felix, Sat Sri Akal.
Sat Sri Akal, and it was great to be with you again, another 9:40 p.m. Wednesday. Hopefully every week we're doing the same similar sort of format. So a discussion on this critically important topic tonight, fertility, and then towards the end some actionable tips in the second half as well.
Yeah.
So fertility.
Infertility.
All right, yeah, well, let's look at the positive side. How do we encourage and increase fertility amongst people who are struggling? And let's, before we get into that, maybe address gender preferences a little bit.
Yeah, well, let's go to infertility and then we'll go to gender. Infertility is a serious problem in this 21st century. It was not as much heard. There weren't many fertility clinics. Gynae wards were there, but they weren't 2.5 times loaded. More they are. There's the turnaround for couples even getting to an infertility clinic minimum is 6 months. The age gap has been now that a woman beyond 35 may not be given an IVF preference. Southampton Hospital last month announced they will only give one option of fertility IVF to a couple. Sometimes in some areas are two. Otherwise, a couple has to spend anything up to £10,500 of to do IVF treatment. And that is definitely not guaranteed. You sign on the dotted line.
Indeed.
So if you lose the child, miscarry, or that embryo that has, and the sperm and the egg has been fertilized and then injected, has not fertilized into a fetus, is failure. So that is infertility. The reasons and causes, Felix, are enormous. It could be the male issue or the female. But the biggest problem with the Asian culture, I'm sorry, I'm going to gruel on this one and drill this so badly. I was very emotionally disturbed in the January month with 5 mothers from different areas ringing for me for different reasons, that they wanted to know whether she was carrying a female. One wanted to abort at the 10-week period because the hospital refused for another scan of a surety that she was carrying a female. I refused to do that. The others, just for the sake of not having in-law pressure, wanted to know well in advance that they were carrying a male gender. Or to appease the parents, or they get pressure and the girl is blamed for carrying a female gender. This is a serious problem. कोई भी जेड़ा issue हैगा या, the male sperm designates whether it is a male or a female. The egg itself only helps to fertilize that, the X and Y chromosome sperm. So, this is not a blame game for females who are so badly tortured, especially in India. And here in UK is that very traditional persona preference that they should have male before female. If you have more than 2, then you are blamed or you are disregarded. If your brother-in-law's wife or your husband's brother has got 2 males, the other one will be not as respected in the house. This is a serious issue, but that is an issue of society. That is what the issue is in society, thinking of what it used to be. Way back in 17th century, 18th century, it's still going on. And I think we need to break away from this cycle. We need as many females
Absolutely.
To make male gender, as well. If anybody has proven that a male can fall pregnant, please get in touch with me
No,
on the number below. It will be interesting to know what chemistry you used, unless there is a change of gender from outside, but inside you are still a female. That is another history and the story of these days today.
But let's tackle this head on, because I mean, in my experience, it can be for so many causes, but we've seen a massive decline in our mineral content, more than half lost since the 1950s. Yeah. And we know one of the leading causes of infertility can be just simply not getting enough of some fundamental minerals, zinc and selenium particularly.
But again, please don't rush out and buy the wrong stuff.
Oh, for sure.
This is only just touching on the broad spectrum.
Absolutely, but I mean, in terms of being at the core, quality of food stuff and buying it fresh as fast as we can is so important, because we know if we leave broccoli in a fridge 3 days, the goodness declines so quickly.
Yes, it does.
But can you recap for us the leading causes, maybe, if I can use that phrase, the leading causes of infertility?
So many, numerous. One could be, I will be happy to say, and also glad to say, that 5 couples came to me last year, all for very different reasons. Each couple had different issues. The male was infertile, the woman had fibroids, the other one had PCOS, the other one had the rarest chromosome that she would never carry a baby to full term. Wow. And she was clearly told that it cannot happen. And the other one was serious endometriosis, so she could not carry a baby to full term with a blocked fallopian tube. All issues were different, even for the male not producing enough sperms. So this is so broad that they could be uterine fibroids, which are not letting the fertility develop. Women infertility could be PCOS, polycystic ovaries, which I'm so successful. So 5 women, we went through that journey of preparing them. Mm-hmm. Each one had different reasons, causes, symptoms, and products given. Some fell pregnant in 2.5 months, others in 3, and some in 5 months. And by November, touch wood, each one of those mothers had safely delivered. It's a gender choice, but all delivered male gender. There was some in food nutrition that I worked with. But anyway, this is not that issue. The issue is we need to respect male and female gender both. So issues could be age factor. You've missed that age and your cycles have changed. You are now creating more estrogen and less progesterone, or your menses have stopped, or you're getting scanty menses, so your ovulation and the egg leaving from the ovaries is very thin or unhealthy and not a healthy enough eggs to create a pregnancy. Smoking, excess alcohol, drugs, stress. May I emphasize on modern diet? I think we've been on it for since January. Modern diet, less protein, stodgy carbs, high sugars, too much salt, too much sugar, and too much tea, obviously. And then obviously when an athlete woman is training too much, she can also get infertile, and taking all the whey proteins and other drugs enhancing can affect fertility. Definitely. And obviously sexual transmitted diseases, big problem with our Asian community as well. STDs, all these can be an issue for pregnancy. Thrush, vaginal thrush, mouth thrush, again, that could be a serious problem for females. Today's education, obviously, I think we have got more degrees, but we still have less common sense, in the sense that to abort, for any one of these 5 girls who came in the month of January, for which I'm still liaising with the team, that I did a show on abortion, a chat show, in June 2016. We are hoping that would be relayed in sometime on a Monday in my chat show. In that was seriously that to abort a child is a crime. It is the death of a fetus. it has a right to live, unless that fetus Felix is deformity, and having taken out the fluid, they have managed to find out that it has got some serious deformity. The child may be premature, it may be mentally damaged. Then there is still a choice a parent can make whether they want to keep that baby and to go full term.
There's a lot of difficult, heart, soul wrenching conversations to have around that topic, you know,
Yeah.
where perhaps someone gets pregnant as a result of violence or, you know, other things. But for sure, yeah.
The saddest thing in UK now is there are couples who are yearning for children, who are married. The saddest thing in UK is that we have got children producing children who are becoming a burden on NHS. A 13-year-old girl getting pregnant, and this is a normal, low middle class people's persona, or entering the country to gain right of stay, to fall pregnant, so your child has a right of stay, but then your quality of life is impaired, and most of these girls have had very insufficient good quality food and grazing on a lot of bad food. And this kind of child producing a child, like a 13-year-old girl getting pregnant, this is out of choice, this is not forceful rape or anything, is a serious problem. She's not even gone through high school education. How will she ever move on? And these girls dump their children with their mothers, who are also smoking, who are also drugs, and that whole story starts because the grandmother is too busy with her own life. That child becomes streetwise, and he's the next child then to make the next girl pregnant. What a sad state of affairs. I think this welfare state is abused to that point. Where under 16 years of age girls are falling pregnant.
Certainly there's a problem, but I mean, all of us now, I mean, I'm in my mid-40s, and there's, within all of our friends and groups of people that we know, there are always people who are struggling with fertility. So let's shift on to the positive sort of aspects. If we have loving families who want to and so much desperately hope to be joined by and be blessed by a child, but they're struggling. So the leading causes
for female I've touched.
Yeah. How about for the men?
Nice one. For the men, varied again. First and foremost, modern diet. Lot of meats. Sometimes vegetarian people are having too much dairy and too much wheat, where their estrogen levels can be varied. Problem with the soil. UK soils are missing with so many important minerals, which we make sure that when these men come to me for fertility, where the wife doesn't have the issue, it is low sperm count, or there's morbidity, the life shelf of the sperm is low, or the shape of the sperm is low, or the tail of the sperm is prematurely made. All those things can cause serious problems with the egg getting fertilized. It is so magical how this whole story happens, that prior to the menses, the woman has released an egg. The sperm has to have the right fluidity. The woman has to have the right temperature. The pH levels of both of them have to be of a certain balance, which I won't tell you. I work with that very closely. They got to be fungus free. They got to be heavy mercury filling free. Most women can't even carry a baby to full term if they are miscarrying. Those women, I would look at their mercury fillings first and foremost.
Wow.
Yeah, get rid of those mercury fillings, get rid of the heavy metals from the bloodstream, and they should be feeling onto a journey. With the other males, obviously comes in alcohol, drugs, bad diet, bad essential fats, poor water intake, heavy acid foods, all this, and soil, air pollution, all these are making huge problems. Electromagnetic field disturbance, that is a huge problem. And we think that, again, the woman is to be blamed, but the male has the major part in dictating whether it's going to be a male or a female.
I think it's interesting for those of you who have followed us from the start of these chat shows. Every topic we touch on, we start to echo our core fundamental principles of reverting the body to balance, through clean foods, hydrating, fasting overnight, trying to reduce inflammation, return the body to balance. And so much of this is echoed. It's very interesting. I know you don't want to go too much into it, but do you want to talk just a little bit more about the acid alkaline basis? Because obviously any meat typically that we'll eat, a sort of animal protein, will have a more acidifying, as with stodgy carbs. Fruits and veg tends to be alkalinizing. If you get a really high quality plant-based protein, you can look and find an alkaline plant-based protein. That would be with a high digestibility. 98% is the one I use, but you can find these alternatives around. They're out there, and if you call the number, I mean, Manjeet knows everything that I take and everything I use to really help.
So pH levels are so important of the saliva, the blood, the vaginal mucous membranes have to have the right pH levels. The spermicidal fluid has to have the right viscosity, otherwise they won't have the strength and the vigor and the valor to swim upwards, because it has to swim a good 12 to 15 inches before it hits the egg. And if it doesn't fertilize, it's going to come down as a full-blown menses cycle for the month. So those things are so important. Again, taking a simple one, which is a home ready to alkalize yourself, very simple, is soda bicarbonate, half a teaspoon, or add a 3/4 teaspoon in a liter of water and sip all day. And people will say, oh, but it tastes funny. It's the most neutralizing pH levels and so cheap. But obviously, that doesn't mean that you're going to ascertain results. We need to look at holistically both patients, male and female. Sometimes if I have the problem is with the female and it's very obvious they've come up with the FSH and LHS problems, then I would deal with the female. But coming on to the pregnancy, fertility, a month or 2 months prior, or a month and a half, I would deal with the husband as well. When we've got the chemistry of both the people resonating as a complete balance, then the survival of the sperm when it's ejaculated would be 100-fold better than just saying, okay, go ahead with it. It's all very personalized. It is an emotional journey, because I get very emotionally taken in with trying to give them results and making sure for mothers who have come to me with 4 miscarriages on the trot before they are even 30. Others are so desperate and they're crying and they go to their family functions and friends and they don't know what to talk, because everybody's babies are crawling around and they're talking about nappies and clothes and nappy rashes, and they got nothing to say. So there are couples who are yearning, there are couples who are desperate, there are couples who are eager, there are couples who are just saying, oh well, we'll just abort this one. I had a very sad case where one of my drivers couldn't bring my car down south, so he picked me up from Delhi airport and I was taken to Punjab, where I would bring my car down south again. And he looked very miserable and it looked like he hadn't slept for many days. And I said, what's wrong with you? You look rough, you look unshaven, you look scruffy. And he said, I've got real problems at home. I said, oh, God bless, you have 4 daughters. What is the problem, Oh, he said, he was driving down from Ludhiana, Punjab to Delhi. And his wife said, can you just throw this carry bag when you cross over the bridge, over the river? And he thought, oh, okay. But as he picked it up in a 40-degree temperature of India, it looked like watery and looked very pulchy. And as he tossed it, he said, I just don't know what I've just done. And when he went back home after picking his passengers, he asked her and questioned her, drilled her. 4 days later, she said she and her mother had aborted a girl fetus. He refused to eat for 3 months and was sleeping rough in the car. I then knocked sense into him. The next child was a girl, and then the follow-up was a male gender. And he said that this girl will come back into her life. How dare you commit a crime? So that was one of the nearest persons I knew, other than the girls calling for a male to abort in the January month, 2018. So, just in this year, I've had 5 calls, and it chills me. It makes me emotional that if we are going to make this choice, it's God-gifted. He gifts you with this being who's going to be grateful that child is healthy. a good weight, can see,
Absolutely.
can hear, is disease-free, doesn't have a hole in the heart, is pooing, can suck, because some babies can't even suckle blood because milk. I'm sorry, because their tongues are attached, or they've got joint issues, or or they're deaf, or they'll be born and become autistic or dyslexic. Oh, they're serious issues, isn't it? What has really spoiled people is this damn MRI disclosure.
Well, it's interesting. I mean,
were you inquisitive when you were having your child?
Look, the way I figured it, we were blessed however we were blessed. And, to have a happy, healthy baby, sure, being a man, I preferred to have a boy because I know what to do with a boy. I've been a boy.
You mean to kick the football and take him to the football match? Okay.
So if I speak openly, I would prefer a boy, but either way, I would be very, very happy. And we happen to have a boy who we feel very blessed. But if I had had a girl, I would have been equally
fond of her.
Yeah,
and cherished her.
Exactly. And I would have learned the skills I needed to learn.
Yeah, knitting, sewing.
I mean, it's an interesting thing because they say oftentimes in life we repeat the cycles of our parents if we don't learn ourselves. But you mentioned tests and scans. There's quite a popular theory of designer babies these days. Do you want to speak on that?
Let's stay on to the MRI scan first before we move on to design. I like that word. The MRI scan has now, initially it was never disclosed. However, I knew each time. It never was disclosed unless there was a serious problem and they'd say, oh, you're carrying a male gender and this child will be disabled for life because it's showing abnormality in growth, or the brain or the head is not developing, or the child is not developing. Then there is a choice. So to do that scan, yes, it opens up a little bit more information. But to do a scan for gender choice, that has opened, and that disclosure has opened up a whole pathway of people having the name ready, having the clothes ready. The biggest surprise was that bundle coming into your arms, and you were then just told by the midwife, oh, you've got a bouncy baby boy or a girl, and they quickly look at the watch. That's the next thing they do, is look at the clock at the first breath that the child takes, and I think he's getting emotional. He's getting his memory going back 8 years ago.
Absolutely.
And that is the time the child is born, and that was the biggest surprise. Life and death, birth and death are controlled by God. No doctor can actually say, let me just extend your father's life by giving him oxygen. He may be a dead body, but living on a machine for the next 6 years, life support. But that's not a life, it's a dead body. So that, has to be, you cannot play with God's creation. Whether it is a pig or a horse or a donkey or an elephant, you can't play with these creations. He has made this human life so beautiful, but to take it away or to snatch it or to rob that person of being born, I don't know when that sin, how that mother will actually pay for her sin. It's a crime. Feticidal death is a crime in India, but heavily followed. The ratio of birth in India is 4 boys to 1 girl. How can that balance be spoiled? 20 years from now, there'll be more male and less female. How is that population in the Asian community or the Punjabi community going to flourish? Are we going to get men to get pregnant? That'll be another story.
That would be. I mean, look, I don't know enough about those issues. I know and resonate with people who really desire to have a baby for all the right reasons, and from a spiritual perspective, it may well be that you are chosen as parents by other souls.
Yes.
And that's a little esoteric,
I like that.
but it's something that we resonates.
Yeah.
So,
we will be going into half time. So very quickly to touch कि ਆਪਾਂ दुख वेले हर वेले उसका शुक्राना करते ने अरदास करते ने सुख वेले उसका शुक्राना पर हर वेले सिमरन ते अरदास करो कि ओ गुरु महाराज ने थोड़ी झोली विच जेड़ा भी चाहे पुत्र होवे or whether it's a girl or a boy, you need to cherish that human life and that comes into your life and give them the best that you can as parents, best education, best upbringing, best food from the mother and the parents, good housekeeping by both parents. Obviously, if the house is full of battles between husband and wife, it doesn't really bring up a good childhood, alcohol and drug abuse. But into the second half, I'll be taking you into the journey of more infertility and how we can give you some sound advice tonight. Stay tuned.